Welcome everyone, StealthyShiroean here, and today I'm bringing you my review of the Humble Choice bundle for January 2023. Hope your holidays were good and everyone is ready to tackle a new year. With the new year and a new month, Humble has graced us with another batch of games. Let me know what you think of this month's bundle in the comments below. Be sure to check the timestamps for specific games and stay tuned for my final thoughts in the end. Okay, let's get to the review. Starting off this bundle is the Serpent Rogue. This is one of those games that sounds good on paper, to me anyway, but in practice it just didn't work. You play as an alchemist who has to collect ingredients to create potions and tame creatures in order to stop the spreading evil. Much of the player's work involves exploration and discovery of new resources to use in order to craft helpful tools and brews. But man, I really hate being hard on the game because as an aspiring indie dev myself, I could see that love was put into this game. It's just not fun though. Much of my time was spent wandering around picking things up and being unsure what I was supposed to do. Information is sparse, and there's a lack of direction despite the quests filling my journal. I think this is intentional, but there seemed to be so much that was unexplained. And the combat in this game leaves a lot to be desired. There's an attack and a block, and that's it. There's the ability to transform into different creatures, which I didn't really explore that much. Maybe some of the different forms add to the complexity of the combat to create interesting choices rather than what we get at the start. Oh, and the game randomly had a weird bug that made it so I couldn't perform any actions. Not sure what was going on with that. Ultimately, I'd say this one is a hard pass for my first impressions. If anyone else tried this one and it just was a case of me not getting it, then please sound off in the comments. Next up, we have Hokko Life, which, to put it bluntly, is basically just Animal Crossing. And that's not really a bad thing. Essentially, you play a human moving into a village of animals, and you do whatever, which involves gathering resources to build things and deck out your home, selling things for money, and helping out the villagers. The feeling of the game felt exactly like Animal Crossing to me, but I have to admit I haven't played Animal Crossing since the one on the Nintendo DS, so it's been a while. I have no idea how Hokko Life might stack up next to New Horizons on the Switch. But from what I played, I think that kind of fan would be happy with what's here, especially with the ability to create and design your own furniture. Similar to Animal Crossing, there's no real rush to get anything done, and you could choose to go about doing whatever you feel like. However, there is direction in the form of quests and the Mayor Merits, which are tasks the players perform to unlock new features and mechanics. I think the biggest departure from Animal Crossing was the change from using real-time and instead using an in-game day, which I think I prefer. I remember when I played Animal Crossing as a kid, I could only play at certain times, which meant I always missed out on something. I was really surprised to see such a low Metacritic score, but I think if you're interested in this at all, then you should look past the reviews and give it a try. The biggest disappointment is that there's no multiplayer support, which I think would be great for a laid-back title like this. That aside, I can definitely see myself putting some more time into this one at some point. Conan Chop Chop is a roguelite that feels like a mediocre game and doesn't really do much to stand out in this ever-growing sea of roguelites. That is, if you're playing by yourself. I mean, unless you're a die-hard fan of roguelites and you strive to play a large sampling of them, but otherwise, there isn't much here for a solo player. However, this game was built with multiplayer in mind. At a glance, Conan Chop Chop has all the trappings of any other roguelite. You have the randomized areas, various bosses and enemies, and incremental progression. Combat is fairly straightforward with a standard attack, ranged attack, dash, and eventually an ultimate. The equipables all have different features to experiment with for various builds as one would expect. So again, it's fairly straightforward. But you can invite a friend with this. I played this with my wife using remote play and we didn't have any problems. Experience is shared between the two of us, so we had to decide who got skill points, but money was in separate pools. We had fun playing the game together, and while every game is more fun with someone else, I'd say it was genuine here. Having never played these kinds of games herself, and me never playing them with another person, it was refreshing and a nice change from what we normally do. We'll definitely return to this one to continue playing. Maybe we'll finally clear that first boss. I'm a bit surprised with Grow Song of the Evertree being in this bundle, only because of how closely related it is to Hokko Life. In Grow, you play an alchemist. Hey, It's another similar theme to another game in this bundle. And you're trying to help regrow the Evertree. It's been plagued by the withering, and players need to help grow new growth on the tree called worlds. Players have to tend to these worlds by encouraging growth of plants through planting, watering, and clearing debris and weeds. There is also a town building aspect to the game. I didn't get very far, but the Steam page alludes to rebuilding the city that once existed at the base of the Evertree. Along with all this pseudo-farming and building comes various customizations for your buildings and character. There's also an alchemy system, go figure, but to be honest I didn't interact with it that much, so I couldn't tell you how it works. It involved pulling essence from items you collect in the world, and I presume using that to build new items. Honestly, I was a bit bored with it in the beginning because of the extreme amount of exposition the game dumped on me. But after getting into gameplay, I started growing attached, no pun intended, to tending to my world and watching it thrive. I will admit there is monotony here, but I'm hoping that the payoff with the building up a town and growing these worlds will be good enough reward to keep playing. OlliOlli World is one of those titles where I don't expect to like it, but after enjoying Descenders I came into this with an open mind. And the game is rather enjoyable. Here we're playing as a budding skate wizard who's just skating and pulling off rad tricks to reach Nirvana, and commune with the skate gods to bring balance between the cosmic and physical realities. Obviously, the gameplay is the real reason why people are playing this game, and it's solid. Difficulty pacing is just right, and the first area acts as a tutorial to slowly introduce the player to new mechanics. As I continued through the first area, I began understanding how to pull off tricks and try to chain them together for higher points. However, this game really is one of those that is easy to pick up, but incredibly hard to master. Getting through the level is only one objective, but alongside that, players can try to shoot for optional, higher point thresholds and side objectives that usually require some very precise tricks and exploration of the level. While the levels are 2D, there are other routes, and many of them the player can go down to find hidden secrets and more ways to gain points. Of course, if that isn't enough for you, then there are leaderboards once a player really starts mastering the game. I know that won't be me though. And I have to say this, but I'm rather disappointed that this is a controller-only game. I feel that if a game is going to be on the PC, there has to be mouse and keyboard support. That's the primary way most PC users play their games, so it should be a given. Up until this past Christmas, I didn't even have a controller, so I almost missed out on being able to play this. Other than that, I think this is a great game to try. I'm not sure that it beats out Descenders if I'm comparing the two trick-based sports games, but it definitely was fun. Encased is an alternate history sci-fi CRPG. The Cold War ended in the 1970s because of the appearance of a large dome that holds all sorts of anomalous creatures and technology. No one knows where it came from, but people have been sent in to study things and send artifacts outside the dome. Although once you enter, nothing living can leave the dome. Within this place are various factions that all have their own tasks, such as laborers, scientists, and security. I thought the setting and backstory setup was interesting, but man did they go heavy on the info dumping. In my hour, I felt like I saw and did virtually nothing. Yes, it was a tutorial, and it's something that I would normally expect. But with Wasteland 3's introduction fresh in my mind, there are definitely better ways to introduce a world and gameplay mechanics. Encased seems so rote and boring. I found myself skipping dialogue just to get on with things, even though it all had pretty decent voice lines. The setting makes the game something I would probably return to for a bit longer, so I could determine if I really want to play it or not. As it stands right now, I would only bother with recommending this to someone if they don't mind a painfully slow start. Following up is Tribes of Midgard, which is a fun survival crafting action RPG. Or something like that. There are two distinct modes to this game which offer something different depending on what the player is looking for. First is Saga, which is a session-based wave fighting mode. This mode has you gathering resources and upgrading gear and crafting stations during the day. At night, the player's village is attacked by evil creatures of darkness. Character progression is centered around choosing a class and associated skills as you level up. This creates a much more rigid playstyle than in the survival mode counterpart. Speaking of, survival mode is basically what you'd expect from this style of play. You craft various workbenches to make tools, weapons, and armor. Eventually, players can build their own base to act as a refuge as they explore the harsh world. Each area has varying required power levels in order to venture safely, so appropriate gear must be crafted beforehand. In this mode, the player has skills as well, but there is much more freeform when selecting them, so you could create a very specific playstyle. Those looking for something more akin to Terraria, Valheim, and the like will probably be right at home here. I have some caveats to mention though. This game seems to be largely built for multiplayer in mind. However, I did play my entire time in solo worlds in both the Saga and Survival modes. I'm not sure if the difficulty is balanced for a solo player, so I'm unsure if later challenges are impossible playing by yourself. Also, there is some sort of battle pass to the game. I didn't look at this at all. It seemed like it was largely for cosmetics, but I could be wrong. That being said, the developers have been supporting the game post-launch and will continue to support it for a while, adding in new content, which is a huge plus. I know this wouldn't be something I'd play by myself, but if I picked up a copy for the wife, this would probably be a game we would sink a ton of time into. And that leaves us with the headliner of the month being Doom Eternal. This is a sequel to the 2016 reboot of the franchise. I'm unsure how much of a story is in this game, but holy smokes, the presentation here is excellent. The hellscape environment of Earth, the monster designs, the well-timed music, and of course all the visceral eviscerations of the Hellspawn. It's a game that I can now completely understand why it receives such high praise. I never played the reboot, but I did play Doom 3 way back when. I remember not being too impressed with the game and never really thought about it again after finishing it. But if Doom Eternal builds off of what the 2016 Doom did, then I am all but ready to go back and start with that one before going any further with Eternal. The combat here is great. It's fast-paced and requires somewhat quick reflexes to line shots and manage health and ammunition. Movement is constant as players need to manage this bloody dance and maybe pull off a few impossible feats of badassery that results in immense satisfaction. Despite being a modern shooter, the game certainly hasn't forgotten its roots with the fast boomer shooter combat and even the weapon and health pickups that have largely become anachronistic in today's shooters. Unless the brutal violence is a turnoff for you, then this is obviously a no-brainer to pick up and play. As I mentioned, I'll definitely come back to this one, but only after I play the first one. Okay, let's wrap this up and see if this bundle is worth it or not. I based my rating solely on whether I thought the game was worth playing on about an hour or so of hands-on gameplay. Overall, this is a good month, but I think Doom Eternal does a lot to tip the scale as to whether or not it's a must-buy. I liked almost every game in this bundle, but I don't think many of them did quite enough for me to be over the moon with this one. I guess with that said, let's just jump right into the recommendations. For the must-plays of the month, there is just one, and well, I really wonder what could possibly be placed here. Yeah, it's definitely Doom Eternal. Doom Eternal brings a sheer pleasure of high-octane action and satisfying takedowns, all done up with some excellent presentation in the graphics and music departments. I've always heard good things about this one and its predecessor, and it's such a shame that I hadn't tried it until now. My strong recommendations for January are OlliOlli World and Tribes of Midgard. OlliOlli World is a fun skateboarding game that really applies itself well for casuals and hardcore gamers. I think the only downside for me is the required controller support, which is what knocked this down a peg from a must-play. Tribes of Midgard offers something slightly different to the survival crafting genre, and I think it does it well. In my time with the game, I didn't really notice any jankiness at all, which is usually a staple for much of this genre. The largest category this month is the week recommendations with Encased, Grow Song of the Evertree, Conan Chop Chop, and Hokko Life. Encased offers what seems to be an interesting story, however, it starts off so slow it's hard to determine if this is something worth trying or not. With other RPGs I have that I know I'd like to try, this one falls far down on my list of RPGs to play next. Grow is one of those games that I think will be really rewarding for me to see everything, grow, but I really wonder how fun the process will be as far as gameplay is concerned. Conan Chop Chop was just another roguelite to me, but I really did like that it had multiplayer. Finally, Hokko Life has its charm and seems to be a solid Animal Crossing style game, which I'm sure I'd enjoy to a point, but I'm unsure how far I'd go with it. In the Don't Bother With section sits the Serpent Rogue. There's something here to be sure, but I don't think it's any fun. With a barely passable combat system, no explanation for much of anything, and what was making out to be fairly repetitive gameplay, I just don't see myself playing this one at all. That wraps up my thoughts on this month's bundle. I suppose I was right with Humble bringing out the big guns with Doom Eternal to launch a new year, but the rest of the bundle definitely didn't hold up to those high standards. Do you agree with my thoughts? What games, if any, are you looking forward to playing? Let me know what your thoughts are, or if there are any different recommendations you'd make in the comments below. I hope this video helped you in some small way, and if it did, then please consider leaving a like, comment, subscribe, or whatever it is you feel like doing. Thanks for watching, and have a nice day.